Dear students, welcome to Tumra online classes. In the last video, we were discussing the evidences for evolution. Different evidences I have discussed. Number one, physiological as well as biochemical and embryological evidences for evolution which has taken place on this earth. Along with this one, right? One more paleontological evidences, very important one, right? So all these are the evidences which proved that evolution has taken place on this earth, right? So along with this one more is there, that is also going to prove that so this evolution has taken place on this earth, right? So which is that evidence? Let us go through now, right? So evidence is from natural selection. Evidence is from natural selection. Yes. So what is the example I am going to take over here is, so industrial melanism, right? What is that concept called as? Industrial melanism. What is this melanism? What is this industrial, right? So totally what is this industrial melanism, you will come to know, right? Here melanin is the color or the pigment present in the skin of the organisms, right? So this melanin concentration, if it increases, then the skin color becomes dark. If it decreases, then the skin color is what? Light in color, right? So this is about the melanin. So since it is coloration of the body of one particular organism we are considering, so that is why, so it is interlinked with what? Industries, development of industries, right? Hence it is said as industrial melanism. Whenever you go through this entire concept, so that moment you will come to know what is this industrial melanism, right? So let us start now, right? See here, in the year 1845 in England at Manchester, there lived one of the moth. That moth name is Biston Betularia, is the scientific name of a moth which lived in England. So during the period of 1845. So in this period there were no industries developed more in England on those days, especially at Manchester. So maximum number of industries have developed. Industrial hub has been developed in that area nowadays, but during the period of 1845 there were less number or no industries developed in England, right? At that moment, so these Biston Betularia moths, so they used to live on the tree trunks. Suppose if it is a tree trunk, right? If it is a tree trunk, on this trunk, these moths used to be on. Okay? So they used to be on this one. Okay? Like this. They used to be on the tree trunk. Okay, and the color of the moth on those days was peppered. This is a peppered variety. It is said as which is grey in color. It was grey in color, and on the tree trunks only there the development of growth of what were taking place on those days, that is lichens. Lichens used to grow on the tree trunks on those days. Why? Because why these lichens are growing on these tree trunks? Because there was no pollution. No pollution in that area on those days. So, as you know, lichens are the indicators of what? Polluted area. If pollution is there, disappearance of the lichens take place. If lichens are present, no pollution is present in that area. That's why they are indicators of pollution. They are said to be as non-polluted area. They are said to be as, right. So like this, on those days on the tree trunks there, so lichens were growing, and those lichens were also grey in color. And this peppered variety, that is Biston petalare moth, which used to sit on the tree trunk and be there on the tree trunk itself. That's why these peppered varieties were invisible to the eyes of predator birds. Why? Because camouflage was seen on here. The background as well as the insect coloration, both are similar. That's why they were not easily identified by the predator birds. Right? I hope it is very clear to you now. Right? So because of this reason, so these peppered varieties of moths would not be identified very easily by the predator birds. That's why, so very less number of these moths were eaten by the what? So the predator birds. That's why the population of these peppered variety was too high. That is about 99%, suppose it is. It was very high when compared to another variety of the same moth, that is Carbonaria variety. Carbonaria variety. It is also another moth. It was also another moth, and its population was too less. Population was too less. Carbonaria variety population was too less, and the peppered variety population was too high on those days before industrialization. In the year 1945, right? Why these were, so these population, these variety population was too less, that I am going to clarify now. So this was 99%, its possible population was only 1%. Why it was so? Because whenever the same Carbonaria varieties sit on the tree trunks, since they were dark in color, they were black in color, they were easily identified by the predator birds. That's why predator birds used to come over here and pick up those black variety only. Right? That's why the population of the Carbonaria variety or black variety was too less when compared to the population of grey variety, that is peppered variety. It was too high. The condition was like this before industrialization. Before industrialization. What happens next? After industrialization. After industrialization means when industries were allowed to grow, that moment. So many number of industries, when they grown, so they started to leave carbon dioxide more and more. That leads to what? Pollution in that area. Right? After the industrialization, pollution took place. After industrialization, pollution took place, that the pollution increased within that time. When pollution that increased in that time in the year 1850. In the year 1850, so after industrialization, so pollution took place in that area. So that moment what happened? Whenever the population of these two varieties of moths were observed, that moment a lot of changes, that is a drastic changes has taken place on those days. What is that is? The peppered variety population was decreased to 1% only, but the carbonaria variety population was increased to 99%. Why? Because there took place here. So these two varieties of the same moth are formed as a result of what? Mutation. Right? When gene mutation took place, peppered variety, some of the peppered variety converted themselves into carbonaria variety. Before industrialization, the population was like this. After industrialization, what happens? The pollution increased. When pollution increased, so these lichens disappeared automatically. When they disappeared, that moment the tree trunks were dark in color. That's why these dark colored carbonaria variety was invisible to the eyes of what? They were invisible to the eyes of predator birds. But at the same moment, these peppered varieties, since they are grey in color, light in color, they were easily identified by the predator birds. That's why predator birds used to what? Feed on these peppered variety instead of these carbonaria variety. So that is why, as a result of which, automatically what happened over here? The population of this peppered variety decreased and the population of this carbonaria variety increased. Right? Like this. So, industrial melanism it is said to be as. Why it is called so? It is very clear to you now. Right? So, now what it suggests us? What it suggests us is, see, nature, in the nature sometimes some of the variations may occur. That is, changed environment may occur over here. Drastic changes may occur in the environment. Suppose if it is so, then automatically what happens? What happens over here is automatically nature selects those organisms, right? Those organisms which can adapt to the changed environment, right? Which can adapt to the changed environment immediately, and those organisms would survive on this earth and they only reproduce on this earth and continue their generation, so that what happens? Automatically that variety of the individual can exist. This was how during the past period, since past period, so many number of organisms what are existing on this earth, gradually they are adapting to the changed environmental conditions. Those organisms which can adapt very easily, they can survive and reproduce. They are said to be as fit animals according to according to Darwin, right? And those organisms which cannot adapt themselves to the changed environment, right? That moment nature cannot select such kind of organisms, right? That's why such kind of organisms they disappear from that changed environment. So this is how the evolution had taken place. Means one variety of organism, since it was unable to adapt to the changed environmental condition, so this disappeared and this appeared itself, right? This existed itself, right? Disappeared in the sense that, so totally sometimes disappearance of the individuals of this kind, those which are not adapting themselves may take place. Sometimes They exist, but their population is too less. This was how the evolution has taken place. It is a continuous process. Evolution is a continuous process. It's not a short period process. You must remember this point. Very, very, very important point. Okay, so this is how one more evidence is there. So from natural selection, nature selects those organisms which can exist and reproduce and continue their species. So they are selected by the nature, hence we say it as natural selection. According to Darwin, Darwin's principle it is, right? Natural selection. Nature selects the organisms which are fit to be on this earth, right? So this is about the industrial melanism, right? So this is also one more evidence, and one more evidence we can add over here of the same kind. What is that? See here, before the Second World War, there lived insects, right? There lived some of the insects or mosquitoes, right? So those insects were, right, resistant to DDT, right? That is DDT resistant variety of mosquitoes, alright? So they existed themselves. DDT resistant varieties of mosquitoes, okay? And their population was too less. The population was too less on those days. And another variety was there, that is non-resistant. Non-resistant to what? To DDT. Non-resistant to DDT. Okay. Non-resistant to DDT. And so this variety population was too high and this variety population was too less before Second World War. Why it is so? Right? So why it is so is, see here, after Second World War there happened something. What is that? So one of the scientists called as Paul Miller is the name of the scientist, the one who discovered DDT, and that DDT which sprayed on the crop plants, that moment it would kill plenty number of varieties of non-resistant, right, varieties of DDT, it would kill, right? And simultaneously DDT resistant varieties of mosquitoes could not die when DDT was sprayed on these what? Crop plants, right? So that's why it is also same kind of situation as with the industrial melanism. What happened when DDT was discovered? That moment, so farmers start to spray this DDT on the crop plants. They used to kill many non-resistant varieties of mosquitoes, and DDT resistant mosquitoes did not die of DDT, right? That's why their population increased simultaneously and the population of non-resistant variety that decreased. When it happens so, then what happened? So nature selected those organisms which can adapt themselves to the changed environment. What is the changed environment here? Spraying of the DDT, right? So this is the changed environment to which resistant varieties can resist this DDT. They can live, they can exist, they can reproduce and continue their generation. So that nature selects those organisms, not these non-resistant varieties. Clear? So this was how, what happened? So natural selection took place in case of industrial melanism as well as DDT resistance as well as non-resistant varieties of moths. Right? So this is one of the best evidence for what? The evolution which has taken place on this earth. So that is evidence from natural selection it is. Right? So this is also one more evidence. Right? And next evidence is, next one is Galapagos Islands. Galapagos Islands, in which lived one of the small birds called as finches. Galapagos finches is another example. Okay, so what are these Galapagos finches? These are also named as Darwinian finches. Why? Because when Darwin was in his young age, at the age of 21, that moment he has been selected as a naturalist. That moment he started to travel across South America, South American Pacific islands, especially in the Pacific Sea, so ocean. So there Pacific islands he visited. Those islands are called as Galapagos Islands. Right? In those Galapagos Islands, so whenever he was traveling, so in HMS Beagle is the name of the ship. Right? Whenever he was traveling, that moment he observed in every island. The islands were a little far distant from each other. Right? And there, in all these islands, majority of the islands, he observed one small bird. Right? So it is of the today's sparrow sized bird which lived in every island there. So which were expected to be coming from? Which were expected to be coming from the South America itself. Right? So mainland of South America they had come from, and they lived in every island, and these birds were adopted themselves. These birds were adopted themselves, so to different feeding habits. Right? What is that different feeding habit? Why they adopted this? Because their beak was able to, whether it is able to feed on different types of food. Right? So sometimes in some of the islands, their flesh was available. They became automatically flesh eaters. And the beak is modified in such a way that flesh is easily torn and it is being consumed by the bird. In the same way, some of the birds in another island, so their availability of seeds was there. They were seed eaters they became, and the beak was modified so as to pick up the seeds and eat themselves. In the same way, in some other islands, so there the major food was insects as well as grubs. Right? And those finches' beak was modified so as to catch the grubs as well as insects and feed on themselves. In the same way, so in other island, other food, beak was in another way it is being modified. What it suggests is, so all these birds would not come in contact with each other since the islands were far away from each other. That is why they used to interbreed among themselves continuously, and the same kind of beak they would have in one island. In one island. If it is so, all of these birds they were coming from the same land, right? And they made one adaptation, right? So in the beak, that's why all these birds were looking to be different, right? When these were different in their beaks only, right? They are said to be as what? Independent species. And all these species are formed from what? A single ancestor. See here the diagram, you will understand. The single ancestor was a seed eater. Basically, this bird was seed eater, and from this seed eater, so there are some modifications were made in the what? Beak of different birds. See here in different oceanic islands. See here, one became insect eater or grubs eater. So one became flesh eater, right? Flesh eater, insect eater or grub eater. Okay, seed eater is one, right? So like this. Another one is a leaf eater, right? Leaf eater and tool using bird means it used to hold the tools in its beak, right? Such kind of different varieties of the birds originated from what? Single ancestor, and this is the concept said to be as what? Adaptive radiation. What it is said to be as? Adaptive radiation. What is this adaptive radiation? The question arises. One more question, it is very important question. It is with example we have to explain this one in theory, right? So what is this adaptive radiation? The evolution of different species from a single ancestor is called as what? Adaptive radiation. See here, adaptive stands for adaptation. Radiation means radiation, emitting of the radiations, So in different directions, the evolution of different species in different directions, you write here, different directions from a single ancestor. You add that one also, then it becomes the definition, right? In different directions from a single ancestor is called as adaptive radiation. What it is called as? Adaptive radiation. The best example for this adaptive radiation is Galapagos finches. Galapagos finches were observed by whom? Darwin. Hence they are called as Darwin's finches. What these are called as? Darwin's finches. And he observed this kind of changes in the same bird that took place in different islands of Pacific Ocean, that is Galapagos Islands. So that's why he thought that this is the main source for his evolutionary theory, how the evolution has taken place on this earth. So as to prove this one, this is also one more important evidence. He thought in that way. That's why he considered this one as one of the best example for evolution which has taken place on this earth, right? And the next one, Australian marsupials. Second example is Australian marsupial animals or Australian marsupials. These Australian marsupials, what is the concept that proves Here in case of Australian marsupial animals, the evolution has taken place on this earth. See here, so in Australia, usually poached animals are seen. They are called as what? Marsupial animals. What they are said to as? Marsupial animals, right? They are said to as marsupial animals. From a single ancestor, different varieties of marsupial animals were formed in different directions. That is nothing but evolution of different species of the organisms in different directions from a single ancestor is said to be as what? Adaptive radiation. Then, basically, a single ancestor, that is marsupial animal or the pouched animal it is. And from this single animal, different varieties of animals were developed. What are those different varieties of animals developed over here? First one is, see here, marsupial anteater is one, right? Flying phalanger, wombat, native cat, right? Tasmanian wolf, right? Marsupial mole, right? And pouched rat. So this kind of different varieties of species of organisms originated from single marsupial animal in Australia, right? All these were the animals which have pouches, but these are all distantly related animals which are originated from a single ancestor, right? So why? Because they have adapted to different ecological niches, right? So they have made some adaptations, right? So based on this one, Australian marsupial animals are also considered an example or the best example for adaptive radiation. What it is example for? Adaptive radiation, right? So and this kind of adaptive radiation is considered to be divergent evolution. What this is considered to be? Divergent evolution. What it is considered to be? Divergent evolution it is considered to be. So this is how Australian marsupial animals which show divergent evolution, that is best example for this one is adaptive radiation. What is the divergent evolution? You know it better, right? In different radiations, the process of formation of new species take place from the what? Single ancestor, pre-existing ones, is said to be as what? Divergent evolution, right? So this is about adaptive radiation and the two examples are given over here. So as an example, one is Galapagos finches, another one is Australian marsupial animals, right? So this is all about the evidences, and one more is there. What is that? So here convergent evolution it is showing. What is this convergent evolution? Let us see now. See here, adaptive convergence. See here in case of different animals, different animals like mammals, like reptiles, birds, insects. All these are developed wings for flight. For flight means the development of different structures over here for only one function called as what? Flight. Such kind of adaptive radiation where development of different structures take place for only one function called as flight. It is called as adaptive convergence, right? So this is about the adaptive convergence. Here I am going to conclude the class, and in the next class we shall continue the concepts. Thank you.